Hello and welcome to another edition of the Four Corners Podcast. I'm Steven.
I'm Colin.
I'm Zach.
Scott.
And today we have a very special guest with us coming from, is it New Jersey?
New York.
New York, sorry. Our good friend Steve Resk. How are you doing today?
Hey, how you guys doing? Thanks for having me.
We're doing great, Steve. So,
Thanks.
how's things going in New York right now for you?
New York is going great. It's been a very action-packed weekend for us, which has been really exciting. Yesterday, we were at House of Glory Temperature Rising, which was really cool. And this morning, we had a bright and early meeting, getting ready for Origins in a couple of days. We had the whole team together, working on some future projects, which was really exciting. And now we're wrapping up tonight with you guys, which is a pleasure.
Well, we are very thankful and honored to have you here, Steve. So with Origins and Gen Con coming up, this is probably your, I would say, maybe busiest time of the year. Can you possibly give us any type of sneak peek to what we can expect at Origins and or Gen Con?
Origins right now is actually, we're going to treat this almost like a Gen Con. So we're going to have 3 Origin exclusive promos that are going to be released daily. We're also going to release on the 4th day a sneak peek at an indie character, an alternate art version that won't be available anywhere else. And this is going to be the first year we actually do a Tornado Tag Team tournament as well as a World Championship. So we commissioned some replica LFF belts. And every time we've done that, we've done them a little bit better. Now we're going to have some rivets in them so they look legit. They're going to last a really long time. So it's really a big step in the right direction for us, where we're going to kind of treat this pay-per-view as a main event, more so than it being overshadowed by Gen Con. It's kind of going to be right up there in a league of its own. We're also going to debut 2 con-exclusive competitors. We just recently sold out of Master Dasmodius, who was a big hit, where we only sold them at conventions. And once the con-exclusives run out, we're not going to reprint them. So it'll be a good time to jump on them and grab those.
Well, that does sound pretty awesome. I mean, I'm looking forward. I mean, I'll see you at Gen Con this year. You guys are fresh off of another successful Kickstarter. What was this one like?
This one was interesting because we had an overwhelming amount of support for creative competitors. There ended up being about 20 characters that are going to enter the game, probably around Gen Con debut. So we're actually going to gear up for a set. We're probably going to call that set the Ambush, just because we have so many new characters coming in from all over the place, which has been incredible. We did get a lot of new players, which is awesome. And of course, anytime the project is successful, we're happy at where we're at. It was our biggest launch yet, and we have a lot of great things in store that we think the next launch will be even more successful. So we got a lot of big things to come. Starting with Origins and then concluding with Gen Con, which has become like our WrestleMania. Hopefully we're going to raise the bar, being that we got an even bigger fan base now thanks to Kickstarter, and then we'll get, I'm sure, a bunch of new players from Origins, and maybe we could top this year at Gen Con and break 100 people for the event.
Well, I can definitely say that'll be really good for you guys to be able to break that record for 100, and hopefully you guys do really well at Gen Con and Origins. But I kind of wanted to ask, you guys have had so much success with this project and everything you've been doing. It's really great. It's actually a new aspect to trading cards and card games on that aspect. But how exactly did Super Show come about? Like what was the thought process and, everything like that?
It really is a great story. As you guys probably do know, I did play Raw Deal for a very, very long time. And because of that, I had a couple of friends who had approached me about creating an MMA game. And we did just that, where I wrote up the rules for an MMA game, which was very, very different from Super Show. And we actually tried to pitch it to Topps. I'm a very stubborn person, and I kept calling Topps over and over again to try to get a meeting. And finally, we got somebody to come see us. And we brought this MMA prototype to Topps, and they liked the game. They liked us. We had a very good meeting. My Raw Deal background played a huge role in it because they knew a lot of the people that I was able to name drop, and especially that we were able to see the rise and fall of that game. the ending outcome was they felt that there was no merit for a MMA trading card game, being that the demographics of those fans, in most cases, probably not the same people who want to hang out and play a card game.
Right.
I agreed with, and some of my partners at the time did not agree with. They said, you know, we started with an MMA game, let's finish it. And Topps actually put on the table that they would like a WWE game. And, you know, my partners at the time didn't want to go that route. And I was kind of like, you know, you have one of the biggest companies in the world offering us to do a WWE game. And initially, I actually, because I was so loyal to Royal Deal, I wrote it up as a board game. And it was really awesome. And they really liked the mechanics of the board game. But they were like, no, we're looking for something a little bit more traditional. So I actually converted the board game into what now is Super Show, and it really hasn't changed much since the original pitch. And at this point, it was basically me on my own dealing with Topps directly on the Super Show project, while the MMA game was kind of a separate entity. And they seemed to promise me the world with like open promises, basically like that they would move forward with the game, and they would tell me things like, don't worry, when we do a contract, you'll be very happy in the position, you know, and it ended up getting dragged on for a while. And then I started, you know, trying to talk to lawyers about how I could trademark my idea in case they would want to steal it. And it basically ended up becoming like a time and money pit for me. And at that time, Gen Con was approaching. This had to be 4 years ago. And I didn't want to go into Gen Con empty-handed because I really put a lot into the Super Show at that time. So what I did was took my WWE prototypes, and I actually had my characters illustrated by an artist. And that was Rising Sun, Big Shot, Snake Pit, no Super Bowl Ray. Those were the first 4 characters that were scripted. And I had the starter deck that I projected to be the original deck design. Because believe it or not, it was always designed to expand the card pool. I just really never had the resources for it. And I had this one artist, Nuno, who's still our main artist, draw these cards up as a plan B. So when it was finally time to officially like pull the plug on hoping for Topps in WWE, I did have a backup plan. At that time, when I showed the prototype to John Calais, who's still my partner to this day, I was able to convince him to get on board and go 50-50 with me, which he did. And we printed the cards from a local print shop. You know, some people actually still have this version of the game where it's on like a very glossy, thick paper. And John, myself, and Chad Gropak actually handmade the dice, which a lot of people still use to this day. They were literally blank counting cubes that were used for like kindergartners, first graders, to learn how to count. And we printed stickers on sticker paper, but these weren't sized to be stickers. They were just one sheet of paper. And we actually had to cut out these little stickers and hand make all the dice. And we made about 1,000 of them over like a 3-day span. And it definitely served its purpose, you know, because we had a working prototype on dice. And right before we left, we realized like we didn't have any method to pack the game in. We did have like the cards that looked professional because they were printed in a print shop. We had, funny enough, we planned for original Gen Con promos. So we had the deck promos, Mass Llama and D2 prizes that you could win, and handmade dice. But we didn't have anything to package the game in, so we were talking like we usually do, messing around. And based on the Rising Sun character, I had this wild idea to package the game in a Chinese food container. I was like, we could use a Chinese food container. It kind of would go with the gimmick of the storyline, you know, we'll tie it into it. So that's exactly what we did. We got a case of like 200 Chinese food containers, put some more stickers on it. This was like my new thing, being able to print stickers at home. Slapped those stickers on, put them in the box, and the 3 of us loaded up the same car I drive, you know, today, a Nissan Versa, with everything that we had. And we were so jam-packed on the way up there with boxes that, like, whoever was in the passenger seat actually had to get out of the car and force the door shut with the person in the back seat. And we drove to Gen Con with, I think, like 200 copies of the games and some fortune cookies to give away and a whole bunch of other gimmicks. And we moved like a really good amount. I think we sold like 120 copies under the table, like without a booth, just demoing, where like people actually liked it, which was pretty crazy to think of. And at that point, people were like, you got to kickstart this project. And, you know, the rest is history. We did the Kickstarter. I went on tour for about a month where I would go to different stores and promote. Like, I really did pound the pavement. I probably didn't sleep, like, any days for that Kickstarter. And we funded in, like, 26 days. We really, really sweated it out. And it definitely paid off because the next few launches we did, we funded in, like, 8 hours, which is just incredible. You know, and it's been growing ever since.
Yeah, that's...
You know, our fans are the best. And we were able to get indie guys on board, you know, some names that I don't think I'd ever dreamed of to have personal contacts with, where, you know, John speaks to them on the phone and via email, and, you know, we've really developed an impressive relationship with indie stars and different retail stores. It's been an incredible journey. That's the short version of it, you know?
I'm sure at some point we'd like to get this question asked to us about the Four Corners podcast, but did you ever expect Super Show to grow into what it's become?
Honestly, I dream big, and I really feel like Super Show is not where I know it will be, you know, and I mean that in the most humble way possible. Like, I've always been a daydreamer, and I always feel like there's so much more in store, and I just learned that you've got to be patient with it, you know, and watching it unfold and things that I've always wanted to do kind of playing out with, even though some things didn't play out the exact way I wanted, you know, being able to work with the independents and watch them grow and make it to NXT, and then being able to have the events where people actually, like, are competing over the belt and chanting and cheering, like the one fall thing. That's one thing I've been saying, you know, from day one. I'm like, we're going to have events, there's going to be 100 people, and they're going to be shouting, like, one fall! And, like, to actually be there at Gen Con and have it there is unreal. But I really, like, deep down inside, I know that there's a lot more to come, and I really do dream big that, like, Super Show will start evolving into more, like, its characters will start having value in storyline and comic books, and I'd like to eventually do animation with it, you know, so I really am confident, you know, almost from day one that there's a lot more in store for us.
Steve, I
could never have imagined what the experience would be like, but I've always felt that, like, we would always have an impact and we would do something special.
So, Steve, just to kind of piggyback on Colin's question, would you say a big goal is to try to work with Vince and see if you can't get WWE superstars at some point to join? Because I'm talking to a bunch of people that I play with here in Lafayette, you know, we're sitting here talking like, hey, man, it would be awesome if Steve and Vince could sit down and see if they could find a way to get this to work to bring other stars. It was just kind of a session where we were brainstorming because we were really getting into a couple of games that we were playing. So, what is your ultimate end goal with Super Show?
For a long time, I would have said that my goal has been to get WWE licensed on this. I guess the more realistic goal would be, whether or not it's WWE or not, to be able to get into your Targets and your Walmarts. And what I learned from experience is, especially being the little guy and being in the Topps office and speaking to WWE on the phone, is your idea is only as good as how valuable it becomes. You know, like, from day one, we knew we had a good product, but until we got the word out and actually showed WWE that we could make sales and even take away from their sales that our product is arguably better than theirs, that we would never even have a chance of any sort of negotiation deal. So our goal is to continue to just take it day by day and grow the product as much as I can until we're back on their radar and we have a little bit of a negotiation point and a leg to stand on to say, you know, our games are doing better than your games. If you would work with us and kind of trust us and the community that we built, we can really do something special. Because with their resources and our resources, if we were able to put John Cena, work with WWE directly and do the things like we've already done on a small scale with like working in public schools and at conventions, I think it would be something truly incredible, especially since they have been hands-on with the independents in the past couple of years. I think that this would be the perfect time to do something like that. But I do feel like at the end of the day, WWE is well aware that they don't need to bring on another company to sell merchandise. They can take a deck of Uno cards and put John Cena and Randy Orton on it and move probably 100,000 units to all the big chains. So what is really their incentive to pick up Super Show? So it would be amazing to work with them. I don't think I would ever sell because I think we've really done something special here. But if not, we're just going to keep doing it the way we're doing it and work with independent wrestlers and keep building our brand. And, we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
As somebody, Steve, that has been to Gen Con and played in your events, you have one of the most passionate fan bases and game groups of any card game I've ever seen. You had alluded to earlier the chanting, and everybody is in unison and excited. And you have a very lively group at Gen Con. A lot of people stop and take notice. And you've had growth every single year that you've been there, and it's just continued to be a success. And like I said, a lot of people are talking about your game. They're very excited for Origins, Gen Con, local events. I was just curious, out of all the people that you've encountered and just taught the game to, who's been maybe one of the most requested competitors to be in a future set?
Who's currently not in the game?
Yes.
It would have to be Cody Rhodes is a big one that comes up a lot. Marty Scurll comes up a lot. Dolphin Castle right now, a lot of people request. And I think those are all very accessible people at this point. Cody, we actually spoke to him face to face. He said he was on board. We made the announcement last Origins that we would probably be working with him. That went a little silent for a while. We actually just reached out to his agent again a couple weeks ago because we have some things in the works and we wanted to bring him up to speed on that. And he said he's going to revisit the conversation with Cody. So I think that might make a lot of people happy because he's been explored. But, right underneath him, I'd definitely say Marty and Dalton. Any Bullet Club Elite member really gets a lot of requests.
Wow, Cody Rhodes would be really cool to see. Sorry, sorry. I was really intently listening. I'm sorry. So when it comes to Super Show as a trading card game and the mechanics on it, I mean, there's a lot of card games out there, Magic and everything like that. What do you feel separates your game from the other games?
By design, Super Show is really unique because I basically tried to design it with a couple things in mind. One, I wanted to make sure it wasn't a money pit like other games. And where the biggest key in that is that the cards are numbered. First of all, they're numbered 1 through 30, which makes a smart deck builder has to pick and choose every one of his cards. Like every card comes at a cost. So on a basic level, it's easy to grasp, but on a competitive level, you're aware of each card you put in or take out affects your deck in certain ways. When you have other games, you have no deck restrictions for the most part. So it's like, I have better cards, sometimes 3 or 4 of each of my deck. My deck is by design better. So that makes us like a lot more approachable with that. We're not a money pit game. A lot of your victories go into your deck design and your strategy. Another thing that makes us much different from other games is that we are designed for the game to be fair. Scott, you guys, you've all played Raw Deal, and I think it's safe to say that if any one of us on this podcast right now taught a new player how to play Raw Deal, and we played a game with them, the learning curve is so high that it would probably take them weeks, if not a month, to legitimately be able to beat you in a game.
Oh, I completely agree. There is a significant curve to that game.
if ever, and I'm talking about like a great player, you know, like the people that are still in Raw Deal are all the top of the line players. We all know the game in and out. People do enjoy the mechanics of Raw Deal, but at like a competitive level, it's really hard to get on that level. Same for Magic, you know, probably for Yu-Gi-Oh! I haven't played Yu-Gi-Oh! That competitively. So it makes it really hard for you to bring a new player in. And that's something that didn't sit well with me, where like I enjoyed playing certain games so much, but if I wanted to like play with one of my cousins or my friends, it was a waste of time. You know, Super Show, like I can play with people who don't have any sort of gaming experience, and they're like, wow, this is a lot of fun. And then the people that are gamers, they really see the strategy that's in it. They understand statistics, so they know that even though there is dice rolling involved, the dice rolling still gives each player the same mathematical odds. You know, so if you play several games, you're going to see the better player wins more frequently than not, because there's still that chance element, you know? They're still the same odds. But on the same hand, the fact that a very experienced player still has the possibility to lose to a new player, and the game is still engaging the whole time, I feel like that makes a really unique play experience. Where that I can sit down with somebody new and them actually have a chance of beating me, you know, up until the very last roll. Because as you know, the game is not over until it's over in Super Show. You could be getting rolled, have no cards in your hand, and you just get hot at the right time and make the right choices, you come back and win the game. There are a lot of games that you play, and even when the game is not officially over, you know it's over. And you got to sit through like long, drawn-out turns. And I feel like that play experience is now what we're trying to capture. We just kind of want to capture literally the excitement of what it was like to wrestle in a game. And the last part of your question was, the game was actually designed with the reality of wrestling in mind. Like, wrestling is very back and forth, there's momentum swing. In all actuality, there is no damage in wrestling. You know, it's all about telling a story and painting a picture. We wanted to make sure things like stipulations apply to both players, that you can do multiplayer and tag team matches and triple threat, and all the different aspects of what wrestling dialogue and wrestling storyline dictates to make the ultimate, you know, where you can actually make an event feel like we're booking matches with storylines and having drama and like people getting character with it. I think overall we did a really good job of capturing that in a fantasy setting.
I would 100% agree with that, and I think everybody else here would as well. And I believe Colin here
And
has...
like another subtle thing, like skill requirement cards. You know, we put really broken cards in the game, but the fact that you can only use 2 of them in your deck in itself keeps the game balanced, because, you know, you have to choose which ones you want. Do you want like the heavy offensive ones that come at the cost of a stop, or do you want something that's a little bit, you know, more firepower but comes at less of a cost, you know? And in other games it would almost be like, you know, it'd be very easy for me to say, you know what, you can use Oklahoma Stampede and 718 and Press Slam and Full Nelson and Tilt the World Backbreaker in your deck. Go on my website, buy them for $8 each, you know, which is what most games do, and you need 4 copies of it. But we haven't sacrificed the integrity of our design for profit, and I think that's really what keeps players interested in our game, is that they know they don't have to go for, you know, $500 every couple of months to pimp out their deck, and we don't make cards obsolete. You know, we're really designing this game with the player in mind.
I actually completely agree with your original point about how Super Show's a lot easier to get into and learn. I started playing Raw Deal last year, and it took me a good 3 or 4 months before I was even remotely on the level of Scott and Steven, and I'm still quite a bit behind them, but I can at least play competitively with them, whereas I played Scott in a game of Super Show one time and beat him. I mean, it's so much easier. The learning curve's so much easier to pick up that it's so much easier to just pick a guy off the street and go, hey, you want to play a game of Super Show? And they're like, oh, sure, why not? And you can literally have them play, and you could lose to them even though they've never literally seen the game before. But speaking of new players, what advice would you give to new players picking up Super Show, be it for casual play or competitively?
You know, number one, I'd say have fun with it. And number 2, I would say pay attention to the small details, because there's a lot of things that were deliberately put in the game that I don't think a lot of people that really dive into it pick up on. Um, and I think that when the people see the things that we deliberately designed as the mechanics, and they see that depth of strategy that is involved with it, it really would enhance the playing for you. You know, so I would definitely say, like, enjoy it, have a good time with it, but also, like, try to pick up on the little things that are there. Now, some things as subtly as, by design, all submissions stop strikes, all grapples stop submissions, and all strikes stop grapples. Like, that's something that people don't pick up on across the board, but you definitely can use this to your advantage during a spot of the game. So that's like a little thing. There are other like tips and tricks. So without giving away too much of our plans, we were trying to program some like AI, like what are the best play strategies. And we had some testers with us this morning, and I was explaining to them that, you know, why you would possibly choose this stop over that stop. And they didn't realize that, just for example, to give you a concrete example, if I play a lead strike on you and you can't stop it, and I win the next roll, a first-time player's rationale is probably going to be my follow-up strike is probably going to be good because you didn't stop my first strike. But that's actually the opposite in the way that Super Show is designed, because the follow-up strike and the lead strike are kind of independent of one another when it comes to stops, and there are actually stops that say if your opponent already has a strike in play, stop a strike, and that was on purpose because a new player is probably going to think, hey, my strike was good, let me try to hit you with another one, and they actually trap themselves by the design of the game. But the more you play, when you realize that, you say, okay, the best strategy is for me to try to avoid playing a card type that I've already played. If I've hit a strike, now let me go for a grapple. If I hit a grapple, let me go for a submission. And then, you know, if you want to take that strategy a little bit deeper, you could say, if I want to trap my opponent into putting a strike into play, I can throw a grapple at him, knowing the only way for him to stop it is by using his strike. And now I've kind of like bought myself an extra turn by giving myself another stop. So there's definitely a lot of strategy and depth to it that I think that a lot of people don't pick up on.
I guess my next question for you is, what has been the funnest moment with your staff, whether it's a board meeting or a, you know, if you're just, you know, packaging cards. I mean, what has been one of the funnest moments for you and your staff?
I gotta say, we do work and we hustle, but we really have a good time when we're doing it. Just this past couple weeks, getting ready for Origins and Kickstarter, we're literally in the basement, which we've done a really nice job of turning it into a mock office. And we're heat shrinking the bags, and we're getting everything, and we're really talking about future plans and things to do, and we're training our demoers, and we're usually always laughing, like, over nonsense. Like, for example, one of the guys was like, hey, we have the most lumberjack playmats. This is a funny story from the other day. So he was like, Rick, you got to get rid of some lumberjack playmats. What's your favorite playmat to sell? And he was like, steel cage. And everybody like just bursted out laughing at him because he had no clue like what the sales guy was trying to say. And like we really have a good time like that because we're a young crew. We love games. For the most part, a lot of us love wrestling. The ones who don't love wrestling kind of get into it. And at the end of the day, we're selling a product that people enjoy to buy, so we have a good time. What probably stands out the most, I think the road trip aspect of it is basically like we're going to be in the car together for 10 hours on the way to Origins. We're going to be staying at hotels. We're going to have a good time, and it's a really good experience. You know, when the actual work time to be done is at a convention, it's crazy. It really is work. It's some of the hardest work you'll ever do. You're kind of constantly under pressure with questions and sales and correcting mistakes. But overall, I think the camaraderie of creating something with people and sharing it with people, it's just like an experience you can't sum up to a particular moment, if that really makes sense. But like overall, just the experience of building something from scratch and sharing it with people and seeing how they respond to it is really just like a great experience altogether.
Well, my next question for you, Steve, is, I mean, I don't think people realize, or I don't want to say they don't appreciate, but I'm sure they do, all the top tier talent that you have in this game. And I mean, these are people that you've actually spoke with and actually got to buy into the game. I mean, Kenny Omega, who's probably one of the best wrestlers on planet Earth right now, AJ Styles, Amazing Red, the Young Bucks. I mean, there's no shortage of talent that have actually agreed to be a part of this game. And I know you're all over the place on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You guys do a phenomenal job of getting the word of Super Show out there. I was just curious exactly if you could shed maybe a little bit of light into exactly how hectic or chaotic it is and or stressful to run Super Show and make it really the most amazing card game that I think we've ever played in terms of unpredictability, togetherness, fun. If you could shed a little light on that for us.
It's chaos. And it's a lot of late nights, a lot of early mornings, a lot of emails. I do my best to answer all my emails. Nowadays with social media, you have Kickstarter messages, you have Twitter messages, you have Facebook, you have the Facebook page, my personal Facebook page, and I really do my best to reach out to everyone. And then on top of that, there's deadlines that need to be hit, where I do a lot of graphics myself. Sometimes our team does it, and it really is a constant grind. Sometimes things take a back seat in your personal life, but you really, I'm lucky that I have a family that supports what I'm doing, so it really does pay off. But, just to paint the picture, we had some of our players the other day helping out, and they didn't know that we literally hand assemble our boxes, and then we put the insert in, and then the dice in, and then the rule book in, and fold it, and seal it, and then we have heat guns now, heat gunning the game, just how much goes into literally getting the physical product to be accessible. Product, before all the digital exposure, is a huge undertaking. Where a lot of people don't really see. And I'm a firm believer in, because we put so much work and effort into these little things, is that what it takes to make it pay off so much. And then even now with this Kickstarter, one of the most difficult things is that we open the door for people to make characters, and we've always wanted to be you design the character, not really the mechanisms. And some people are really pitching things that are just way over the top. And, you got to keep these people happy because they help your company grow, but you also got to keep the game integrity intact, where, there are certain things we cannot or are unwilling to do because, A, we don't want to complicate the game, or B, we want to keep each character on a level playing field. So, you have to back that up by fact. So you have to, come with playtesting notes to make sure people are always testing it and things don't fall through the cracks. And it's constantly evolving. So, you have the design of the game that you have to take part in. You have the events that you have to schedule and make sure you can get there and be there on time. You have the product that has to be manufactured. You have future plans that you always have to keep in the back of your mind. And then you also have the fan and community interaction, which in today's world, social media is like an open window. I can't even tell you that, sometimes I get messages 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, which again, I'm grateful for, I appreciate it, I wouldn't want it any other way, but it's just kind of it puts it in perspective, I do sleep sometimes. It may not seem that way, but I do, sometimes I'm just eating dinner or whatever the case is, and in most cases, people are patient. But it is really and truly a full-time grind. You got to make sure that you don't catch yourself being lazy. Every day you have to be productive in some way, shape, or form, and things will continue to grow. It's little by little, the word constantly gets out there with every little thing you do. So when you have this experience and you are able to kind of immerse yourself into it, it's like an organized chaos. I'm fortunate. My fiance literally is like a lifesaver to SRG Universe. People will never understand. She literally keeps things in line. Where I'm constantly just sending her screenshots of things she has to remind me for at the end of the day. This has to be to an order. Make sure John knows that he has to do this. Make sure these two guys are on the same page of what time they have to show up. So it's this constant thing, and sometimes things get overlooked, sometimes you make mistakes, but you kind of always have to go with it and just make the best of every issue. We had issues where we ordered the wrong size Chinese food containers, and they came these mini ones, and it was the perfect fit for the mystery box. So now at Origins, we're actually going to debut pre-constructed mystery boxes in these amazing LFF labeled Ling Fine Fortune labeled Chinese food containers that are all sealed, and they'll come with 2 decks, 2 dice, 2 extra competitors, Mr. Ray, and an autograph card. Like now, we made a mistake by ordering the wrong Chinese food containers, and we actually turned this into a new product that we're going to hand to our product bus. It's like that sort of chaos where as long as you keep going, you kind of open up different doors for yourself. And then there's the other aspect of it where, we have to budget ourselves. We have to pay for art. Sometimes art doesn't come out the way people want it. There needs to be edits, that'll push back other projects. And we also got to, plan for other stuff like the next game we have coming out. And it's literally like sometimes I'm glued to my phone. Other times I'm glued to my computer. Other times I'm always on the phone. If I'm driving, I'm always on the phone. And I love it. I really do. I don't want it to sound like I'm complaining because it's really been an amazing experience. But I just want people to know, and they can appreciate it. They don't have to appreciate it. But it really is, there's a lot more that goes on behind the scenes than people think. Like even on the smallest scales of like what it takes to get rulebooks printed and shipped in on time and folded and put in a box,
Steve, I don't really have any more questions for you, but I'm really looking forward to seeing you guys again at Gen Con. And I've got a Christmas list of things, so I'm hoping that you've got the hookups for me when we get to Gen Con.
Always, we always, like I said, especially our fans that are looking to pick up a bunch of stuff, we always do our best to do the right thing. Our fans that have been down since day one, we definitely work out deals and different things. And you'll have the opportunity to win a lot of stuff at Gen Con, which is always great. The most important thing is we get more players involved and we can do more stuff to make the future even bigger for us.
Well, see, I was gonna.
Support and everybody support people looking at Gen Con. We definitely can do that, and we can continue to grow like this really special community that we have.
Well, like I said, I've noticed at Gen Con, just exactly how much work every single member of your staff puts in, whether it's Sam, John, yourself. There's so many people pitching in and doing their part to help make this game run. And it is really nice to see, and it's even better to see it pay off and you guys grow every single year, like I said. And the fan base, again, is so loyal. I don't think people understand, maybe from other games, just looking at it, exactly how loyal and dedicated these people are to this game. Whether it's getting into the storylines or the gameplay or the tournaments, or creating your own competitor.
That's kind of one of the things that always is in the back of my head when it's like talking about, would you sell if WWE wanted you to buy? Obviously, everybody does have a price, but in the back of my head, like what makes our game so special is the community where we can make our own characters and people can interact, and like that feeling of like, oh, I made this character and somebody likes that, and now they're signing autographs as their character that they created, and they're sharing stories like the motive behind it. That really drives our community, and I don't think that would be possible with WWE. WWE is literally only going to work with their IP. So while we'd be able to do something probably bigger, it would definitely be different than what we already have. And just to touch on your comments on our team, our MVP is my grandmother. She is a machine. When I tell you when it comes to she is actually the person who puts all the competitor cards in their packaging and seals them. And she's like, I need more. I'm like, I literally don't have anything else for you to steal. God bless her. She just like, oh, give me something to do. I'm done. And then I'll hear her with the heat gun upstairs. She'll be sealing packages. She just literally whatever you throw her way, she just rolls through it and wrecks it. So she's been a real MVP. Definitely as of late.
Well, that's awesome, Steve. I guess I just have 2 more questions, if you don't mind. One of them is with Gen Con and Origins coming up. I know you kind of gave us some insight on Origins. Is there anything you can kind of give us an insight on for what you have in store for the future? And are there any events that you want to promote that are upcoming besides the Origins event that you had talked about earlier?
We have a very special event when we get back from Origins. I believe it's the 24th. It's going to be at the Alternate Universe. They have a great play group. and they have to actually have their women's title. They made like a custom women's belt, so she's going to be defending that, and it's for a really good cause. It's going to be a memorial event. They had a close friend of theirs who was taken by a drunk driver, so they asked us if we can do like a memorial event to kind of raise awareness for that, which we were 100% on board for. So I know they're going to open the event with like a 10-belt salute, and we'll definitely have like myself and some team members kind of, give a little promo on that to kind of raise awareness for that, because that's definitely important. We want our players to take care of themselves in every way, shape, or form. Other events, I can't really go too much into the details of it, but John and I are working behind closed doors on something that would be incredible for us exposure-wise, and it would put us in a really good position to work with some of the top talent of the world for 4 days in a very, very unique setting. So as the details to that progress, we'll definitely let you know if things are finalized. And we also have, obviously, we have Gen Con coming up, and we're going to look to see if we can get on board PAX Unplugged, because we showed up there as spectators last year, and we ran some demos, and we had some talent with us, and it was like so well received that if we're able to get booths, that will be like the next big step we're looking to have.
I mean, that's tremendous, and I'm looking forward to these events. I mean, it's awesome to see everything that unfolds and gets reported on social media. But real quick before we go here, do you have any of your social media platforms that you would like to plug?
Yeah, we actually have one of our team members, Shaggy, who created the Italian Lombada, running our Twitter now. So that's at SRG Universe. On Facebook, you can search Super Show the Game or SRG Universe. We're very, very active on Facebook, just because that's my direct line to social media. Instagram is SRG_Universe. We usually use Instagram to kind of promote new art and things that are kind of behind the scenes. Hopefully that'll become a little bit more active as we grow, after Gen Con. Try to put somebody on a roll for Instagram, same way we did with Shaggy on Twitter. And of course, SRGUniverse.com is really what keeps us afloat and keeps us going. So those would be the best places to direct. You could Google us too. If you Google SRG Universe and search images, it is absolutely incredible, the picture that it paints of what we got going on with like fan art stuff and wrestlers and different events we've been at. It's really incredible. So if you get the time, I'd definitely punch that in. Just check out some of the images. I'm sure maybe even Four Corners podcast. I know that you guys do a great job of promoting that stuff. That might even be in the mix right now, which is incredible. You can see like Kenny Omega and your podcast right up against it.
I would definitely be a favor for that.
Yeah. Just like I said, type in SRG Universe and check it out. You guys have done a great job posting that flyer, and I wouldn't be surprised if it came up in our search.
We appreciate it, Steve. Well, we've just about run out of time here for this episode. I want to thank you again, Steve, very much for taking time out of what I know is a very busy schedule for you to sit down and do this podcast with us. So, for everybody here at the Four Corners Podcast, I am Scott.
I'm Steven.
I'm Colin.
I'm Zach.
And we are tagging out for this week, guys, and we will see you again next week.